آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Our Father in heaven, we bless your name, we worship your name. Father, as we want to start this program, we pray that you start it with us and end it with us. As well, we pray for your wisdom and guidance till the end of this program. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray.
Thank you very much. Please, everyone should put their tags properly. So we'd like to acknowledge all the organizations that are here present. With us, we have the All African Student Union President, heavily represented by His Excellency Comrade Osisi-Ogu Osikeng, the President. Please, let's give him a round of applause. We also have the League's Vice President in person of Comrade Otaru Mohammed. Please, let's give him a round of applause. We also have the CEO, Brainbox, in person of Comrade Blessing Ugbem. Please give us a wiper. That's her coming. We also have the Secretary General of the Pan-African Youth Union, all the way from Ghana, in person of Ahmed Benin Wishinchong. Please, can I give him a round of applause? We also have Esther Simon, all the way from Namibia. That's the President of Pan-African Female Youth Leaders. Please, let's give her a round of applause. We also have the Ambassador of AU that will be coming very soon, in person of Ahmed Buhari. We also have Fatwa Undoye, all the way from Senegal. Please, you can give us a wiper. Okay. We also have Alhaji MD Salihu, the Speaker of Arewa Youth. We also have the Speaker of Oduduwa Youth Parliament, Oladimeji Alutaje. So, I would like to call on one of the keynote speakers and one of the presenters in person of Aliu. Please, you can have the stage for your presentation.
Good afternoon. I would like to perform a spoken word presentation which I titled Greatness of Africa. You know, when I look at Africa, I look at her often. And when I think of her, I think of her often. And when I imagine her often. When we were here, some people came and claimed that they discovered the Cape of Good Hope. They said they discovered all lakes in Africa, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Chad, Lake Victoria, Lake Malawi, and all rivers in Africa when we were here, and they claim we had no history. And the fact remained that African continent is the cradle of human civilization. When Europe was in the caves, the Dogon people in Mali had already recognized the stars. When the Europeans were still eating raw meat, Africans had discovered fire. Africans were the pioneers. And even in the religious angle, I am a keen reader of both Quran and Bible, and they all record that God said, let us create man in our own image, and that he took soil and formed man out of it. The last time I checked, soil was brown or black, not white. And I can confirm that I checked this morning. And I can confirm that I checked this morning, the soil is still brown, the soil is still black. And therefore, if anybody is created in the image of God, it is we who of the black race. The greatness of Africa can never be overemphasized. The greatest pyramid in the world is in Africa. The pyramid of Giza in Egypt were made here in Africa. We still define architecture and engineering is the Africans who made them. The walls of Benin, which are 4 times longer than the Chinese Great Walls, were made here in Africa. The Great Walls of Manu Matapa in Zimbabwe were made here in Africa. The temples of Lalibela, which were dug out in Ethiopia out of the soil, were made here in Africa. And when you go to the warriors of the world, the mummies of the Amazon, of the Humi, were found in present-day Benin. Kinzinga of the Mbanda, of the Matamba, was here in Angola. Kinkabaka of Uganda in Uganda was here in Africa. Queen Amina of Zazzau, the present-day Zaria, was here in Africa. This is our history. Some things we know, some things we do not know. But this one we know. Throughout the ages, despite the fact that they have done everything to erase African history from the face of this earth, even in their own history, they acknowledge that all their great men come to Africa. What did they come to do in Africa? Socrates was in Africa. And when he came to Africa, he met Orunmila of the Yoruba tribe, who was a great philosopher than him. Pythagoras was in Africa. What did he come to do in Africa? You pay homage where knowledge is. Plato was in Africa. What did he come to do in Africa? You pay homage where knowledge is. Aristotle was in Africa. What did he come to do in Africa? You pay homage where knowledge is. Hippocrates was in Africa. What did he come to do in Africa? You pay homage where knowledge is. Dr. Bath, a German explorer, was in Africa. What did he come to do in Africa? You pay homage where knowledge is. This is the cradle of human civilization. I hold the view that Africa will be great, Africa must be great, but Africa will only and can only be great if we choose to spiritually decolonize our mind, our heart, and culture, because it is only through then that Africa will be a great continent. Thank you very much.
Greetings to you all. I'm Zara Ismail, and I'm here to present a spoken word titled The Wall and the Bridge. If a white man turns and calls me nigger, my blood will boil in righteous anger, for the evil of discrimination is clearly established when a white man tries to treat me like shit. But if our Hausa says Igbo are greedy and crude, and Igbo say Hausas are haughty and rude, and Ijo say Ishikiri must die today, and Ezra tells Azilo there's no other way. If Yoruba declares it is out or nothing, and we use federal character to share everything, so before you can even smile and tell me welcome, you must first ask me where my father is from. If those who were settlers but now indigent say those who are settlers can become Indigene. Why the Constitution says we are both citizens, local government keep issuing certificates of origin. If my brother passed JAM but can't go to uni because he is thief, he's not Kanuri, and Unimed has a quota for its catchment area, so he must go back to Benue or West Maumoye. If it's okay to say it's not okay to marry someone just because they are Kalabari and that every tribe should have its own site, are we not then practicing apartheid? If you cannot buy land unless you are a native, you cannot feel safe unless you are a native, how can we then say we are not primitives? Yet, we go to London and buy their passport. We settle wherever, however we want. We stand there and fight for equality and come back and start to use ethnicity. I don't get the logic of thinking it's different to be tribalistic and then to be racist. If we are happy to judge him just hearing his name, whatever you call him, my friend, it's the same. Where there is no courage to cross this divide, where there is no rule to look deep inside, and stop judging accent on surname and dressing, this fire we are quenching will only keep burning. How can one build a foundation so brittle if we cannot see ourselves in each other? This journey ends here, we are going no further. For when God made man, he gave him no facial mark. He did not make Bagi, Oku, or Angus. As sure as a black man is just like a white man, no culture is older than being human. This is the truth. Until we accept it, our nation will stumble on its broken feet. The same thing that binds us can drive us apart, for the wall and the bridge are both in the heart. Thank you.
Indeed, Africa is great. So I'll call on the representative from Senegal, Fatah Undoye, for her keynote speech and our welcome address. Please let's give her a round of applause. No, you can come through this way. Yeah, through this way. Okay. That's welcome. So you can mix French.
Yes. Bonjour, good morning. I'm happy to be here to join Nigeria and represent the Senegal through my association. So I am just doing a presentation of my association. How African youth meet the challenges related to the promotion and protection of human rights, because the association is Young Advocates for Human Rights in Senegal. It was created in 2016 and used the acronym YA, our mother tongue, Wolof, which means education. At three main levels of commitment, the aim is to build a bridge between youth, people, age 6-35 years, and develop in them a strong sense of human rights awareness and civic engagement. For the first level, academic, according to age group, workshops are organized and participants are given a secure space to learn about human rights core principle. The aim is to trigger in them curiosity, motivation, to put into practice their acquired knowledge. There is a civic engagement level. Progressively, participants join various subcommittees such as serving through human rights education, combined community services, and the organization of focus group and larger community talk on human rights. There is young African women and leaders help increase women's level of engagement and participation in their respective communities. Collectively and individually, they learn on how such education network, to lead empowering talk in their peer, in their period 6 to 8 months every year. As core assessments, they plan, organize, and evaluate a 2-day program of various human rights related to activity as in chosen community. There is a peer collaboration. Crowdfunding is frequently organized to help share knowledge, practice, and experience with peer in extending region where there is less access to quality education. When tested in various public, private schools and through community services, experience show that at all levels of education, the more youth know about human rights, the more chance they have to remain in school, and the more they feel to serve their community and country. In the framework of promoting awareness and respect of human rights, it intends in this to share more funding based on observation and interview and statistics. It's just to resume about the association. So, that I wanted to do. Thank you. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Let's give her a round of applause. If it was French, she would be more fluent. Yeah. Please, let's give her a round of applause again. So permit me to invite the representative of the Abuja original inhabitants, the representative of Commandant Isaac David, here for their own goodwill message. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Agife. When I say Agife, I say Afiai. That is the Gbagi language in FCT here. So when I say Agife, you say Afiai. Agife. Awolana, you say Adagmalo. Okay, so my name is Beatrice Lawrence Gariki. I'm an original inhabitant of FCT, the project and organization manager of Abuja Original Inhabitant Youth Empowerment Organization. We're a youth-led organization building the capacity of young people to live, lead, and also thrive. Our work focuses more on promoting the rights of original inhabitants of FCT. And then this right cut across their political right, their socio-cultural right, gender right, service delivery, health, and many others. I had a message from my sister there when she came up here, and she had said something that really touched me, and then has to do with citizenship. And that was a very brilliant one. Please, a round of applause for her. So I must say it's a good thing that we all are gathered here today to actually proclaim. And then for Africa to actually move forward, it's important to know that we need the energy of the youth and also the wisdom of the elders. And then in pursuing all our pursuit, we have to recognize that we have to pursue and also advocate for what we want in a way that minimizes danger and maximizes opportunity for all. I'll say that again. We have to pursue our plight in a way that minimizes danger and maximizes opportunity for all. I say that because Africa is ours, all of us. And no race, religion, or ethnicity that is bigger than the human race. And then we have to make a safe haven for every one of us. And like they say, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So it therefore means that no human can exist but all by himself without the other humans. So the same goes for our nation at large. We have to find a common ground, look into our weaknesses while supporting each other with our strengths. So today I'm here to just give a goodwill on behalf of Ambassador Isaac David, who is the SA to the Honorable Minister on Youth Matters, and also the Executive Director of Abuja Original Inhabitants Youth Empowerment Organization. So we welcome you all into the Federal Capital Territory, which is the most, which is the heart of Africa. And we say that with all pride. So because I have this analogy that I make, and I said, you don't talk about the world without talking about Africa. And I go further in an unbiased way. I say, you don't talk about Africa without talking about Nigeria. And you don't talk about Nigeria without talking about Abuja. And you don't talk about Abuja without talking about the original inhabitants of FCT. And we are known for our peaceful nature. We are very accommodating people. Original inhabitants have given up so much for this kind of meeting to be possible. Abuja has been tagged as one of the most fast-rising capital in the whole world. And the reason for this is because of the peace that the original inhabitants have bestowed on this state or on this nation. And we all can also agree that no nation can develop or attain its full potential without peace. So which is the reason why we say everything that we do, peace and love has to be at the core of it. And I'll leave this stage by saying that as we all have come here in peace, we're going to go back in peace. And I believe that at the end of these deliberations and lectures and discourse, we're going to learn from each other and network from each other. And importantly, let love lead. Thank you very much.
Please let's give him a round of applause. Yeah, so I'll be inviting the presidents of Association of Nigerian Female Students, ANFS, for their own goodwill message. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Educate the girl child. Please, all ANFS members, can you raise your hands, please? So we are going to go with our slogan to enable everyone understand the message we are trying to pass. So when I say educate the girl child, you all say build the nation. Educate the girl child. Build the nation. Educate the girl child. Build the nation. Build the nation. Educate the girl child. Thank you so much. My name is Comrade Ezugu Christiana O, the president of the Association of Nigerian Female Students. And on behalf of ANFS, I'm sending a goodwill message thanking United Youth Federation of Africa for organizing this proclamation to speak for the youth, to look into the challenges facing the youth in Africa. Not just looking into the challenges, but proffering solutions, lasting solutions to these challenges. And I would like to say that this is a very good initiative to give a voice to the youth and to encourage the youth that they can actually do better in every field they find themselves. And at the same time, this is more like giving them the wings, beneath their wings to fly, not just chains to stop them from going far in life. So this is a very good platform, and I wish to say thank you to UYA and to every youth organizations that have supported this event and partnered to the success of this event, that together We are going to create a generation where the youth in Africa will not only be successful in their different countries, but we are going to not just make our nations proud, but Africa proud. And Africa as a nation, Africa as a continent, will be seen to soar beyond the imaginations of what people think we are in the world. So thank you very much for having ANFS, and together we'll continue to raise our voices for the girl child and for women and youth in Nigeria and Africa. Thank you very much.
Please, can we put up a round of applause for our president? So, as she was speaking, some of our Pan-Africanists came in. With us is Kader Esther Simon, the president of Pan-African Female Youth Leaders, all the way from Namibia. Please. With us is also the Secretary General of Pan-African Youth, Comrade Ahmed Benin. Please, can you signify? All the way from Ghana. So I also call on Aliyu for another speech. Thank you. Africa. Isoweto. Thank you. Great man.
Thank you. I think speaking for too long in the presence of the president of Pan-African Union for too long, speaking in his presence is not very wise. I would like to recognize the president of Mr. Ahmed Benin, the president of Pan-African Youth Union, a mentor and a coach. Actually, I don't know what to say, but let me say the following things. You know, Africa, as I used to say, is the cradle of human civilization. But the white men used to brainwash Africa, and they keep telling us that Africa does not have religion. Africa does not have culture. Africa does not know civilization. If you don't read the African history, you will be manipulated. You will be manipulated. Yaro Lufix and Cuneiform, they are black Egyptians, and they are the two people that started writing. So don't allow any white man to manipulate you. Read the African history. African history is interested. Read about Africa. As I said, hieroglyphics and cuneiform were the two people that invented writing in Egypt. We still define architecture and engineering in Africa. So there are two types of Africans, and I know which category I belong to. There are Afro-optimists and there are Afro-pessimists. I am an Afro-optimist. I believe Africa will be great. I don't know which category you are. I believe Africa will have one currency one day, and I believe Africa will have one federal capital territory. It may be Abuja, it may be Lomé, it may be Fort Nobo, it may be Accra. I don't know, but I suggest Abuja should be. We will have one currency one day. We will have that, and this is the dream of Kwame Nkrumah. This is the dream of Julius Nyerere. This is the dream of Sam Nujoma in Namibia. This is the dream of Herman Adimbo Toyibo. This is the dream of Agostina Neto. This is the dream of Ahmed Benin here, and this is my dream as well. This is my dream. We will have one currency, and we will have one president. But I'm not saying Muhammad Buhari should be, but we have one president. We will have one president. We will have one president one day. You shouldn't be, as I said, we should be optimistic that Africa will be great. We shouldn't be pessimistic. When Chinese are planning their things, they used to plan it 100 years to come. But the problem with African, if you ask him to think for tomorrow, he said, only God knows. Black man, if you say, please think about 100 years to come, he said, no, I will not. Because we don't plan for the future. We just plan for a short period. But Chinese and other European countries, they can plan for 100 years to come for their children's. But Africans, if you ask him to think of only next tomorrow, he said, only God knows. We must stop this. Africa must be great. We must write our history, and we must also know our culture as well. I also hold the view that we are going to stop using American dollar for exchange. We will have Afro in the continent of Africa in 2063. This is part of the Agenda 2063. This remember me the African agenda, and let me read. In the year 2013, the African leaders, whether we like them or not, that is another debate for another day. We elected them, or they happen to be the leaders, and therefore they are the political leaders. And it is important to make a distinction between leadership in its broad sense and political leadership. Political leadership is the most visible leadership and the most effective in terms of marshalling all our resources and ensuring that they are coordinated in the manner that benefit us all. That is why political leadership is at the very heart of human development. The politicians sat in 2013 and came up with the Agenda 2063. That is how I imagine Africa, Agenda 2063. But in the year 2063, South Africa alone will have a GDP of 3 trillion United States dollars. And at that time, we shall not be measuring our GDP in dollar terms. We shall be measuring our GDP in Afro terms. Our currency will be called Afro. And Afro will be the strongest currency in the world. And the GDP of South Africa will be 3 trillion, that the per capita income of South Africa will be 30,000 Afro, and that all our children will go and gain education from primary to university, the cost being underwritten by our taxes, that all our minerals will have a value addition, that we shall no longer be importing complete product from China. There will be a mobile for Namibia. Namibia will be manufacturing mobile phones, and that 1 million Africans will be using that mobile phone. It could be the adult phone, will be called the Mobi Africa. And Namibia will not stop there. I looked at that day when Botswana will no longer be selling any cows to Europe. Those cows from Botswana will be consumed in the continent of Africa, and Lesotho will not be left behind, and Eswatini will be a Shangri-La where we will go for a tourism. And it will not stop there. It will go on to Central African Republic. It will go on to Gabon and Benin and Chad and Togo and Liberia and the Gambia and Mali and Mauritania and all these countries and Sao Tome and the Principe and the Seychelles and Mauritius, because there will be leaders at that time. In 2063. It was a dream. But is it not true that we must all dream? The only problem with Africans, the solution is that when we make a dream, we have to wake up in order to realize that dream. But the problem with African, when we make a dream, we continue sleeping. We don't wake up. We must wake up this time. We must wake up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We also have the vice presidential candidate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He's a comrade, a graduate from Federal University of Technology, Minna. His Excellency Ahmed Buhari from the party ADC. Please let's give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. We also have Ambassador Ricky Wanjofo, the National Deputy Secretary General, National Youth Council of Nigeria, NYCN. Please may I also call him for the National Youth Council of Nigeria goodwill message. You can have the stage. They say build the youth, destroy the youth, demobilize the youth.
The last one is always important when we have events. Demobilize the youth. Build the youth. The hall is silent. Build the youth. Destroy the youth. of the greatest Nigerian youth, of the greatest African youth. My name is Ambassador Ricky Nwajofo, the National Deputy Secretary General, National Youth Council of Nigeria, here representing my principal, the President, the #1 youth of the Federation, Ambassador Sokubo, Saraibe Sokubo, who is unavoidably absent. We just concluded our national management meeting in Port Harcourt this morning, and he had to attend to other matters and I flew in. National Youth Council of Nigeria is the umbrella body of all the youth organizations in Nigeria, coordinating the affairs of youth organizations, faith-based NGOs, recognized by the National Youth Policy as the mouthpiece of the Nigerian youth. It is a bona fide member of Pan-African Youth Union and a bona fide member organization of World Association of Youth, WAY. Our job is simple. Our task is simple, but tedious. Coordinating the Nigerian youths to ensure that we have one voice. But it has not been easy, because the political class will never allow us to be united. They will never allow us to have one voice, because they know that when we have one voice and speak in one voice, their shelter will be scattered. A tip of an iceberg was what happened during the NSAS. We tried to speak with one voice. Then, they also got some people within us to scatter the one voice. That was why, at a point, it came down to Abuja. It was still some youth that scattered the protest. The protest was unarmed protest. It happened in Asaba, it happened in Lagos. But when it started, at incipient stage of it, it was like a tsunami coming. And the political class were all jittery. Assuming we proceeded a little bit more, 2023, a youth would have become a president. But it's not late. We are here to talk about the youth of Africa. The last speaker, he's not a comedian, but he's a comedian by nature. He said, a dream of 2063. Are we still sleeping in that dream? Or are we awake? Do we have a dream where in 2063, at least 30 countries out of all the 50-something countries in Africa will have their presidents as youth or from the youth constituency? Is it impossible? It is not impossible. Take Nigeria, for example. The demography of Nigerian youth, not exaggerating, we are not less than 100 million, but we are above 100 million. There has never been an election in Nigeria that had the electorates who participated more than 30 million, 40 million. No. Which means, if the Nigerian youth decide to wake up, get out of our enclaves, arm ourselves with our PVC, and say, enough is enough, we'll produce the next president. And if the next president does not work in accordance with what we think, he fails to work in accordance with our dream, we'll bear with him just for 4 years. And in the next election, we'll do what? We'll boot him out. When the next one comes, he or she will be jittery, because I believe the father one day will have a female president. So he or she will be jittery that if I don't perform very well, that I only have one tenure to stay. And by that time, we also have youth at the National Assembly, where if the president fails to perform, we also protest and tell our representatives there, please, you have to impeach the president, that we won't even have the patience to allow him spend 4 years, because this country belongs to us. Enough is enough. They have done enough harm than good. By his grace, I've been privileged to be in some countries, and I will use just one country in South America called Ecuador to give an example. Ecuador, less than 30 million persons. Topography that is very hilly. They don't have an arable land. Their topography is hilly. They have mineral resources, just a little petroleum, a little of it. An infinitesimal fraction that has nothing to compare with ours. But get to Ecuador, everything is working out fine. The ambassador of Nigeria, representing Nigeria in Ecuador, the ambassador covers Ecuador, Venezuela, and Peru, and Colombia, 4 countries. He once visited, and we met with him. He shouted. It was his first time coming to Ecuador. He said, if we were to be in Nigeria, that these people are living on the hills, on the mountains, that those people will be abandoned. But in Ecuador, any place the government maps out that it is habitable, there must be a transportation route, electricity, water to that place, even if you are the only person living there. Yet, they don't have 1/100 of our mineral resources. What is our problem? Please, the organizers, if I'm speaking more, just signal me, because if you allow me, I have passion when it comes to this. Because it is high time we woke up from sleep. 2023, people have started campaigning. And a lot of us here will still vote wrong candidates. I'm not campaigning for any person. Vote according to your choice. But let that your choice be in pari passu with your conscience. But the problem remains that some of us don't even have consciences anymore. Because when you say vote according to your conscience, what will you be voting according to when you don't have a conscience? But assuming you still have a conscience, assuming you still believe the fact that pensioners, your fathers and my father, who have served this nation, are not receiving their pensions. Some are being owed for 24 months. Those who suffered for the nation. Yet, the political class, they are receiving their pensions. They are even saying that they should be paid triple of what they receive while in the office. And they are being paid as and at when due. We are saying nothing. It doesn't bother us. Nigerian youth, it is youth o'clock. The president of National Youth Council of Nigeria has asked me to tell us, because I wouldn't say tell you, because I'm inclusive. Tell us that it is youth o'clock. That we should wake up and take our rightful place in the polity of Nigerian nation. It is no more business as usual. Let them not deceive you that our vote will not count. It will count. And if it doesn't count, we'll take to the streets. The fact is that, like I said, NSAS was the tip of an iceberg. If we get united and just take to the streets, 2 days, they will answer our call. But some of us will be paid just peanuts. I will ask someone, I always say, I monitor elections. If you are giving 50,000 naira to vote the wrong candidate, 50,000, which has never happened, what they say is 2,000, 5,000, at most 10,000. But even if you are giving 100,000 to vote the wrong candidate, divide that 100,000 by just 365 days, which is just 1 year. How much is it? Calculate it. Vote according to your conscience. Let's make Nigeria great again. Thank you and God bless you.
Build the youth, build the nation. Destroy the youth. Thank you very much. May I now invite the vice presidential candidates from ADC, comrade, leader, and His Excellency Ahmed Buhari. Thank you very much.
Greatest Nigeria youth. Greatest Nigeria youth. I heard with keen interest as the Deputy National Secretary of the NYC and spoke, and I won't lie, he made he prepared the ground for my speech, to be honest. I like the passion, I like the zeal, and I heard all he said about ensuring that we're going to mobilize young people to vote for young people. And I'm just saying that I'm slowly moving out of that age. But whenever you guys decide, remember me. We're going to keep saying everything we're going to say with regards to fixing this country. And I like the fact that he used examples like Ecuador, 30 million people, and scarce resources, and to also understand how they have developed, or should I say, how they have put things in place for themselves. And when you move to Nigeria, the reverse is the case. Though the population of Nigeria is times almost 10 of Ecuador, but that's not to say that we do not have the resources that we need to put things in place for our people and our future generations. But I think what is even most pertinent in all of this is I have seen politicians, I have seen presidents and governors in the last 25 years or so, especially in the birth of our new democracy. And some of them, they look like they do not have the competence, yeah? And they have gone outside their ways to get competent people, sometimes even get people from around the country, around the world, experts to come back to Nigeria and help Nigeria succeed. But one thing I have noticed is when they bring those people from the World Bank, from the United Nations, from where have you, Harvard School, Cambridge School, they come down to Nigeria as ministers and they fail. And I'm asking myself, what is really wrong? Is it a problem with the politicians, or is it a problem with the Nigerian people? So I did an in-depth understanding of what the problem might be. And clearly, Nigeria is standing on a tripod, basically. And what I mean by a tripod is that we have the executive arm of government, the legislative arm of government, and the judiciary, which are called the three arms of government. It's on one leg. Their function is to decide on policies, decide on projects, and eventually functions to see how those things that they have planned would eventually reach the Nigerian people as the dividends they have promised. The second leg is the civil service structure. Now, what is the civil service structure? The civil service structure are the ministries, the people in the ministries, the people in the parastatals, the public servants, the civil servants, the soldiers, paramilitary, civil defense, police. That's another leg. I call them the gatekeepers or the implementers. What do I mean by implementers? It means that they're the ones who eventually allow all of those policies and projects that the three arms of government has sat down and deliberated to see how it can be implemented through the civil service structure and eventually gets into fruition, and then the Nigerian people will feel the dividends of democracy. But this civil service structure, in my opinion, has failed consistently to allow the dividends of democracy reach the Nigerian people. Why? Because they are the implementers. Why? Because they are going to be there for a minimum of 35 years, each and every one of them. But these politicians have 4 to 8 years maximum to be there. No matter who you change, no matter who you bring, no matter how good he is, no matter how honest his intentions are, no matter how he clamors himself to be Mr. Integrity and all of that, we have seen them fail. Which is why when I listen to politicians talk about what they really want to do, and I'm asking myself, how can you build something on nothing? How can you build success? How can you build the dividends of democracy on nothing? Because the civil service structure is unhappy. And why is the civil service structure unhappy? If you look back in our history, from the 60s till around 2007, we've been constantly restructuring the civil service structure. And anytime we restructure, anytime we bring new templates, we end up retrenching people. We end up sacking people. The worst of all was after the Odoji panel in 1976, after the Nigerian Civil War. Thousands of Nigerian civil servants were laid off, most of them with no benefits. Some of them went back home with no pension, no gratuity. And from that point on, most of them decided, the ones who remain, of course, will I suffer for Nigeria? Is it worth it? What if I give my all to Nigeria and at the end of the day I just get sacked at my 25th year in service with nothing? And then so people who started getting employed into the civil service structure, the first thing they started thinking of was, now that I'm inside the civil service structure, day one, what can I grab for myself in my pockets? Because I do not know. One politician might just come with his own policy tomorrow and it's going to affect me. So if that is going to be a possibility, I'd rather steal what I can steal today. I'll give you an example. Go to the ministry today. As you're entering into the ministry, you will see posters on the wall. Mr. So, they need 500,000 naira for his medical assistance. Mr. So, we need 200,000 naira for his medical assistance. Go back there after 1 month. Obituary, he eventually died. Obituary, he eventually died. And then his colleagues, the person who died, his colleagues in the office are thinking, is this how I'm going to also just die? All this man wanted was 500,000 naira. The health insurance scheme that they have prepared for us is not working. And so they could not access the funds. He died. Now that he has died, his family comes to this place every single day looking for how they can pay them his pension, how they can get his gratuity. And then his colleagues are thinking, is this worth it? Will I be honest, diligent, patriotic, defending the service that I work for? Or should I just take the one I can take now, so that the day that the rain falls, I would have something I have stolen to protect myself? Now, this is the critical problem. I'll give you an example with the soldier at Sambisa Forest. He's at Sambisa Forest at the front lines. He's defending this country. He knows that any day a bullet can hit his chest or his head, and he goes. He eventually gets a phone, he picks up the phone and calls his wife. Darling, sorry, I've not been able to speak to you for 2 months. We've been battling with Boko Haram. How are my children? They're here, they're at home. At home? Why are they not in school? Oh, they chased them out of school for the last 4 weeks. And then he's thinking, I'm here defending this country, and I'm just finding out that my salary doesn't even get to my wife to take care of the household. He has bullets with him. He has ammunition. He has guns. And he starts to think, if I cross this 100 meters over there, I see Boko Haram men. I can sell this and make some money and send to my family. We lose him. On patriotic grounds, we've lost him. This is a gatekeeper. Look at the police barracks. I don't know if you guys know where police barracks exist, but go to the police barracks and see. It's worse than slums. You think they just go on the street and be angry just like that? You think people just want to be angry? You think people just want to be wicked? You think people just want to look mad? There is something that is igniting that reaction that you see from the policemen on the roads. These are the fundamental problems. And that is why I'm saying, no matter what a politician will come and tell us, no matter the framework, no matter the policy, no matter the projects, how would they eventually see the light of day if they would have to pass through these gatekeepers that I call the civil service structure to eventually get the dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people? The only way out is for us to move completely from a salary incentive structure to a welfare structure. What is the salary incentive structure? We want 30% or nothing. Oh no, we want 40% or nothing. We'll go for strike for 6 months unless you pay us our 40%. Eventually, the government allows them to go for around 6 to 8 months and call them to the table and say, okay, fine, we're going to give you a 30%. The moment they give them the 30%, Mama Iyabo selling Gari at the market has heard. She moves her mudo of Gari from 100 naira to 130 naira. She's waiting for you people. And for those people who did not even get any increase at all in their salaries, they are now faced with stiffer hardships. It's like taking one step forward and a few steps backwards. How do we intend to ensure that these gatekeepers will, if not anything else, be patriotic to the cause? What is the cause? Defending the constitution of the Nigerian people, defending the Nigerian people, defending the projects that have been passed through them. Go to the civil service structure today. You are bidding for a contract, and then you present it, and then your friend in the civil service looks at it and says, oh boy, how much markup did you make here? I did 20% markup. Are you serious? Yeah. Oh boy, you don't have sense, so go and make it 200% markup. Because at the end of the day, they're all going to share. So the real people that we have put in place to defend us are the people that are creating the leakages that is making it almost impossible for us to prosper as a people. But you blame them completely. I don't blame them completely. But I think there's a way out. And as I said, it's about moving completely from a salary incentive structure to a welfare structure. What is my welfare structure like? Number one, we need to provide affordable, subsidized housing for civil servants. And the day they get employed as civil servants, they go into a rent-to-own housing scheme that makes them own their houses from the beginning of their service in the civil service structure. Because as I tell you, any civil servant who comes to the civil service to work is probably living somewhere around Angwanduze. Yeah, because that's where he can afford. By the time he marries, gets a child, he moves from Angwanduze to Angwambiri. And as life goes on, he keeps moving further down into the bush. Do you think he's not going to be frustrated? That is the same reason why anytime you finally expose a thieving civil servant, maybe a PAMSEC or a director, you find out that he has 80 houses in Lagos, 45 houses in Abuja. There's a reason. Because he has control. It passes through him. And for all of those ministers I spoke about from the beginning, all of them, when they come with their agility and passion and desire to see that Nigeria looks like the places they're coming from, they fail woefully. Take an analysis of most of the people that truly wanted to see things happen differently. They failed woefully in their ministries. Eventually, they go back to the PAMSECs and say, dear PAMSEC, how do you want us to do it? And then he laughs. Well, this is how we've always done it. Sit down, let me tell you. And so eventually the executives, the legislatives, the judiciary team up with the civil servants, or should I call them the gatekeepers, and they bring us down to the ground. The second thing I want for the civil servants is affordable health insurance scheme that covers them 100%. No matter what happens to a civil servant, no matter the kind of illness, let it be that a medical procedure will be catered for from the system that they serve. No, not anymore should we see civil servants looking for arms from people on the streets for them to survive. What is the third thing? There must be affordable, subsidized education for children of civil servants in government-operated schools. In that way, I assure you, anytime a civil servant is even asked to go and check if a project has been completed, his report will be honest because his children go to that school. His report will be true because he knows that anytime he steals from the system, it's affecting his own generations directly. What is the fourth thing? Everybody will still tell you we want something in our pockets. We want money. That is why I believe that the civil servants should at least be on a tax rebate system. What is a tax rebate system? It means that for every time a civil servant shops in the market, in a store, he collects his receipts together and he goes to the tax office at the end of a financial year and claims his tax returns. That is the only time a civil servant will flash his ID card and tell you, I work for government. Go to the United States. You will see a postmaster, somebody who all he does is to deliver letters. But he will tell you he is so proud to have done it for the last 35 years. Because he has everything that he needs. The system has given him all that he needs. And so he's proud to be whoever he is. He doesn't lack anything. He defends the country with all his heart and might. But we know that after all of these things are done, we're still going to have people who will say, we still want to steal because it's in our DNA. Which is why we know that we must put in place proper data management systems. These proper data management systems will help us with accountability, transparency, efficiency, and an appraisal mechanism system that will ensure that only true civil servants, people who are dedicated to their job, will remain in office. I assure you at this point, civil servants will be the first to blow the whistle when they see their colleagues stealing from the system they are trying to defend. Because each time any of their colleagues steals from the system, it directly affects their own welfare. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just think that for us to move forward as a people, and I'm glad that I'm seeing some faces from other African countries, our problems are the same. Every part of Africa that I've been to, all the struggles are the same. It's an institutional problem. How can you get the honest people that would honestly defend the system that they have been asked to come and defend? Unless we're able to appease these people in a way that they will know that in truth, they do not have any choice but to defend the system that they have sworn allegiance to, we may not be able to progress as a people, as a country, as a continent. Thank you very much.
Where we could go, nowhere to go. You say your love no delay, girl, I miss you there.
Build the youth.
I will love you forever.
Destroy the youth.
Would you be mine? I don't know. Freestyling for studio, and I'm singing the song they go. I know that I'm high, but I just the flow. So baby, make you.
It's for the youths. Please, do we have Mr. Sadiq Agbola here? Do you have him? Yeah, please come up. Thank you.
Pull it, move me the bagger. Control it, give me the lagger. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the high intensity of the highness, I bounce out now. God loves you, alright? Respect, reality of the real highness. It's the road boy.
Alright, build the youth. Ignore the youth. Well, I'm actually perplexed by this, but then he said I should give a goodwill message on behalf of ASU, as the All African Student Union. So I think whatever I'm going to say, I'm actually going to say it in the capacity of my leader, Comrade Einaya Osisiogu Igwe. So I feel most honored and privileged to do this. I want to pray that God Almighty in His infinite mercy grant us all journey mercy to our respective destinations. But however, I want to use this golden opportunity to admonish us to be good ambassadors of our respective organizations. We believe that with the continual emergence of well-meaning youths at the helm of affairs, then it is very, very possible that the endless years of misrule in Nigeria and by extension Africa, shall be consigned to the dustbin of nightmarish history. God bless you all. Thank you and God bless you.
Build the youth. And now welcome ST Simon from Namibia for our good message and presentation.
My love now,
Let's give her a round of applause.
trendybeats.com.
Original, no fake you. Now original, no fake you. My love now, original.
Good morning, everyone. No, this is not the energy I expect from a room full of young people. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful. Well, when I came in here, I heard people saying, build the youth. Build the youth. Destroy the youth. Wonderful. Well, from the southern part of the continent where I come from, we say Amandla, then you say Awetu, but with a bit of energy, right? Amandla. No. Amandla. All right, thank you very much. A warm good morning to all of you. It is really an honor for me to be amidst all of you. Well, I must say, it's my first time in Nigeria, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time. I've also observed that the gentleman who's the MC is probably a follower of myself on Facebook, because that's not my official name. ST is a nickname. All right, well, today, ladies and gentlemen, more than ever before, the wheels of gender equity and women empowerment have taken on a historic momentum as more women become fully aware of their rights and continue to boldly shatter the glass ceilings. My presentation is going to be more focused on mainstreaming young women into key position of governance per se. And before maybe I proceed into that, I would just like for every female leader in the room to stand up, and we give them a resounding round of applause for taking up the space and for being the voice of the voiceless. Shall we please? The round of applause is not loud enough. Every female that is in the room must be identified as a female leader. Please stand up. Shall we then give them that round of applause? All right, thank you so much. That round of applause was for the bold, courageous, and braveness that you keep showing in amplifying the spaces that you're in, and for continuously boldly shattering the glass ceilings. But this historic feat could not be, or could not have been more possible without the relentless struggle for civic rights and gender equality sustained by brave men and women who saw into the future the unlimited possibilities of women challenging the status quo. Yet even so, ladies and gentlemen, a huge demography of women continue to suffer from the blight of misogyny, misguided stereotypes, sexual and gender-based violence, as well as sexual harassment in different spheres. Indeed, they are at the receiving end of the most cruelest forms of abuse, which over the years have manifested in the form of economic and financial violence, which emanates from the patriarchal structures of power. My presentation today is really not to highlight the collective plight of the many setbacks and hindrances that the girl child continues to impede towards moving forward the top of socioeconomic construct, but to rather really assert the much evident importance of women taking center stage in terms of leadership and governance, because the time has arrived for the girl child to take the stage, or to take the center stage. Ladies and gentlemen, well, available data continues to show us that women have been historically disadvantaged in participating in politics. Africa and the rest of the world are far from achieving the 50% women representation in politics and in all levels of governance. A quick search shows that in 2021, Africa was, or rather is, at 24% when it comes to women representation, be it in parliament or level of governance. And according to the International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, these low numbers or low figures are either because of a lack of political will, restrictive electoral frameworks, or the deeply entrenched patriarchal systems that we find ourselves in, which the girl child has to continuously fight against. And for some of these root causes, we do then see the low figures that continue to manifest throughout the continent. On the ironic flip side of this concerning scenario is that reality that African governments have enacted many instruments of laws and policies in Africa committing towards equal and effective participation of women in politics as well as young people in governance. Equally, it is important to also realize that balanced political participation and power sharing between women and men in decision making is also internationally agreed towards through the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action. But what is very interesting is that there is a disconnect between the ideal and practicality between what we say and what we do. I think it's about time where we move towards a more radical approach in terms of implementation. There is equally also a disconnect between our statutory aspirations and the actual political will within the corridors of power, more often than not dominated by men. And I think the representation in the room is a clear indication of what I'm saying. But we are not intimidated because we are coming. Nigeria, or a look at Rwanda shows that 60% of women are in parliament, which is really a significant milestone for a country that is emerging from a dark chapter of genocide. On the other hand, Nigeria, for instance, has 6% representation of women in parliament, which for me is very concerning statistic considering the role of women in the working class struggle of the colonial and post-colonial times is quietly well and fairly documented here in Nigeria. One would naturally have expected that Nigeria would be a trailblazing dominating force in the leading the way towards a vast representation of women and youth in the state's political life, both at regional, national, and continental level. From the difficult past, which women in this country have been forced, and I would want to recognize few, and you really need to pardon me because the pronunciation is going to be of a lady from the southern part of the continent, yeah? But we'll do this together. The likes of Omo, Abba. Please help me.
Omo Oba.
Thank you. And Anieke, right? Read the name.
Aneke.
Okay, Aneke. And then Moremi.
Moremi Ajesoro.
Okay. Chioma Ajua. Oh, I think I'm doing very well. Fast learner. All right. And not to forget the many others, right, that have stood out and ensured that they radically represent and ensure that they fight for women representation, be it at the regional, be it at national, be it at continental level. And I think while we are at this, maybe just to continuously to give a round of applause for women that are in the spaces that do not only just pave way for themselves, but pave way for the younger women that are following them at the back. We continue to draw inspirations from the bold shoulders of women that came before us. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stand here today, we in Namibia are coming from a weekend of a political contestation. And I must say, it was a very intense, heavy, but yet again, a contestation where the ruling SWAPO party has aligned itself to make sure that we do move forward with regards to implementation, what we call a zebra policy. This zebra policy is a policy that speaks to 50-50 equal representations in terms of gender. What it means is that when they are busy voting, if it's an issue of the central committee of the party, we would have an equal representation of women and an equal representation of men. I think this must be a lesson that many African countries can learn from. Equally so, the 50-50 representation aligns with the 4 top leaders of the party. Namibia boasts of a 50-50 gender parity in parliament, while the country has recently celebrated the arrival of the opposition party also being led by a woman. This per se goes to show that women are continuously taking up key space, and as young female leaders, we continue to draw inspiration from that, but equally amicably advocate for an equal representation of young females into these key spaces. We have seen over and over young females taking up spaces, be it in areas of political space, governance, leadership, and so forth. This goes without saying, where you have President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, who recently appointed a young member of parliament at the age of 26. The same goes with President Geingob of Namibia, where you have as young as 23, 22 young females that are in key decision-making bodies, be it members of parliament, be it as deputy minister. This goes to show equally that as young people or as young females, we have shown capacity, we are able to deliver, we have what it takes. All that we need to now amplify for, advocate for, is a radical implementation of policies which speaks to mainstreaming these young people into these key decision-making bodies. With the strides that have been achieved thus far, we will continue to advocate for more female representation on different levels of governance. The United Nations data, and this is just quick statistics, shows that women are underrepresented at all levels of decision-making worldwide, and that achieving gender parity in the political life is far off, right? While we are at this, the United Nations further contend that the current rate in terms of gender equality in the highest position of power will not be reached as far as another 130 years. I think these statistics are very scary and calls on everyone in this room to start putting in the actual needed work, and it also stirs a call into action for all of us to say, how best can we ensure that we move towards having an equal representation of the boy child as well as the girl child? Well, while I'm at this juncture, I'll also, however, want to put my hands together for Nigeria and the Nigerians, and the rest of the African countries of who've made this possible for Madam, and again, pronunciation is coming in here, Ngonzi Okonjo Iweala, right? Who I must believe is your former finance minister, and now continues to serve exceptionally well at the world level, right? As the Director General of the World Trade Organization. Indeed, this is an achievement for Nigeria, this is an achievement for Africa, and this is an achievement for the female gender. But what this teaches us is that there is a disconnect when we continue to say the future is female. The future is not only female, but the present is also female. What this means is that in order for us to advocate or to ensure that the future is female, we need to prepare for that future today. Hence that our slogan to say the future is female need to then us being saying to say the present is female, hence the future is female as well. Moving close to the end, women are underused human capital resource whose fullest participation in key positions where they are able to make key decisions and building economies and societies of the future. Women are strongly motivated by strong impulses of compassion and long suffering, and this instinct inherent but natural traits are key to engineering economies that we have in human face. I'm not trying to tell you what a woman is, but I'm trying to tell you why you need to have women in key positions because of these traits that they have. In closing, you know, understand that a politician closes 4 or 5 times. They'll tell you moving close to the end. In conclusion, lastly, but well, I am almost there, right? In conclusion, we can no longer remain just activists of inclusion from the picket lines. But the time has arrived where we radically need to push for policies which speaks directly to ensuring 50-50 representation and equally emphasize on youth participation at both national, regional, and continental levels. Young people can no longer be used as statistics to take off attendance on youth participation, right? You go in a room, it's a head of states, and right, there's an attendance. Do we have a young person? Oh, yes, there's one. Do we have a female? Oh, yes, there's one. No, we are not just key attenders of meetings, but we are equal key stakeholders that bring along wealth of knowledge, wealth of understanding, because we understand the issues that we are facing way much more than any other person. So we are key stakeholders that contribute towards the development of our nations, of our continent, and the world as well. Profoundly, we must also move past the stage of advocating for inclusive policies, because now I can attest that as a continent we are good on paper. We have crafted extremely excellent policies. But these policies continue to collect dust in our offices. It's every other second day there's a conference and we need to work on a policy of youth inclusion. Every other day we need to work on women, mainstreaming women into politics. But when it comes to the implementation stage of these policies, nothing is happening. We have passed that stage of crafting policies. It's now time for implementation. Lastly, I want to leave you with the words, or rather wisdom words from Che, who says, and I quote, "You should learn to think and act as a mess. It is criminal to think as an individual. I therefore call upon all of us in this room to become a collective and work together towards mainstreaming not only females, but young people as a collective into key positions of governance." And with these few words, I thank you. Amandla. Awetu. Oh, that was fast to forget. Amandla. Amandla. Thank you very much.
Wow. Please permit me to invite Mr. Udwak Ekanem to speak on behalf of the Youth Platform. Okay, before he comes, then I'll call on Capacity President, Comrade Kada Ahmed Benin.
And good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me seize the opportunity to congratulate the organizers of this particular engagement for their contribution to rallying young people toward the Africa we want. And so on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Pan-African Youth Union, I extend our warmest congratulations to the organizers and initiators of this program and for their determination to make Africa a better place and the voices of young people amplified. Our commitment as the Pan-African Youth Union to build synergies and to enhance social cohesion across the continent remains unyielding, and we call on every young person to join hands to partner with the Pan-African Youth Union and the Article 12 institutions in our respective member states that are the National Youth Councils and equivalent structures to ensure that young people are mainstreamed and state mandates to empowering young people executed. Our vision to build a youthful, evolving machine to galvanize youth into a rising social change force is one that every young person must identify with and be willing to contribute to, because the continent constitutes over 75% of its population being under 35 years. And that means that in excess of 750 million people out of the 1.4 billion people are made up of young people. And therefore, if we want to develop this continent, if we want to build the Africa we want, if we want to execute the aspirations of Agenda 2063 and the Africa we want, young people must therefore be at the center of the development of this continent. Africa is described as the most youthful continent in the world, with over 75% of our demographic below 35. The implication is a two-edged sword. We are either harnessing our demographic dividends toward a rapid and robust economic transformation agenda that will improve the quality of life for our citizens, or translate this into an enormous potential that implodes and destroys the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, to achieve the aspirations of Agenda 2063, African youth must be at the fulcrum of the continent's transition. We must be a youth and a generation that drives the socio-economic development of this continent. And in doing so, there are a couple of actions that we must at all time be mindful of. One is the peace, security, and stability of the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remind ourselves and continue to be guided by the wisdom of our forebears. And permit me to quote from one of Africa's greatest, and I quote, "Africa is a paradox which illustrates and highlights neocolonialism. Her earth is rich, yet the products that come out from above and below the soil continue to enrich not Africans predominantly, but groups and individuals who operate to Africa's impoverishment." Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, end of quote. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if we are to strike the development nexus fittingly, we must focus on silencing the guns, building a peaceful, stable, and resilient continent. We must scale up our advocacy on silencing the guns, elimination of violence, extremism, radicalization within our communities. We must strive toward integration, toward a prosperous, peaceful society driven by its citizens. We must scale up our advocacy to end systematic exclusion of youth in matters of peace and security. Youth are active participants in conflicts and should be recognized as key actors in peace processes. The operationalization of UN Resolution 2250 remains crucial in our quest to silence the guns and to harness the true potential of the African continent. We need stability, peace, and a non-violent climate to take advantage of the potential of the over 1.4 billion people in Africa. African countries must, as a matter of exigency, transform the economic architecture to reflect the aspirations of post-colonial states. Radical economic transformation through trade and industrialization remains an imperative. The continued dependence of states on the export of raw materials, consistent with the economic architecture developed by colonialists, is no longer sustainable and not fit for purpose. We cannot develop our human capital, improve the quality of life of our people based on an evidently incompetent economic architecture developed by imperialists to undermine the dignity and well-being of Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the post-colonial economic architecture that African states continue to use as a modus operandi is unsustainable and is one that will only plunge us into debilitating deprivation and exploitation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, education, skills, jobs, and the future of work is crucial to establish Africa's development nexus. And when I say Africa's development nexus, for those that have been following the outlining of Agenda 2063, it's developing a continent that is peaceful, prosperous, resilient, and one that is capable of transforming our natural resources to the benefit of the broader citizens of the continent. 8 out of the world's 10 highest unemployed countries fall in Africa. And for those that follow the statistics from the World Bank, the ILO, and even from the AFDB, you realize that Eswatini, Lesotho, South Africa, down, have the highest unemployment rates in the world. Technical vocational education, TVET, is the way to go if we really want to address the canker of youth unemployment. TVET is an essential leveler and a driver of growth with enormous capacity to drastically reduce youth unemployment in Africa. The implications of high youth unemployment, inequality, and the systematic economic exclusion of youth is simply an insecurity to the continent of Africa. African governments and private sector must therefore build synergies and needed partnerships to increase investment toward training young people, building competent individuals to meet the needs of our labor market and the economy of the future. Africa is faced with an ever-changing labor market dynamic and new demographic trends. Many African countries are working to streamline and reinforce their TVET systems to take advantage of the new trade SPV adopted by the African governments as an initiative both continentally and at their national levels. Now, this SPV that we speak about is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And for those of you that have followed the conversation since the adoption and operationalization of CFTA, of which the headquarters is in Ghana, you would realize that the major beneficiaries of the current architecture are not African industries. Because whether Nigeria, Ghana, or any other African country, we import everything from toothpick to earbuds from China. And it is not possible for us to be beneficiaries of the Continental Free Trade Area when we do not produce anything. Young people must learn to adapt the efficient application of Internet of Things, disruptive technologies, big data, artificial intelligence as tools to scale up our efforts for social change. I wish to recommend the following. 1, build sustainable partnerships between private sector and states to guarantee resilience in skills and technology transfer. 2, Africa must develop multi-sectorial and cross-cutting mechanisms based on mutualization schemes. Now, when we say mutualization, it means that if the private sector develops a particular skill set and states want them to transfer that skill set to young people and citizens, then states must ensure that they make certain kinds of resources available for the operationalization of these schemes. Third recommendation is that African governments must reevaluate the current mobility systems and review visa regimes to boost radical economic transformation and to ease cross-border economic activities. And simply to say, our governments would need to break down the visa regimes if we want to take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good governance and accountability are critical imperatives essential to building resilient and sustainable communities that are futuristic. Young people cannot be passive in matters of corruption and accountability. All of us must recognize that the democratization of education, be it access, quality assurance, provision of quality and affordable health care, employability, skills development, jobs, political stability, economic inclusion, and quality of life is directly connected to the effective application of good governance principles. The necessity of prudent governance in Africa cannot be overemphasized. I call on everyone in this room to activate your civic responsibility, not to be spectators, but to be real citizens and patriotic ones at that. Our silence or indifference to bad governance is a tacit endorsement and makes us complicit to the perpetuation of inequality, underdevelopment, marginalization, systematic exclusion of the most deprived people across the world. No one can be silent or indifferent in the face of evil. You are either contributing to the evil or against it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our socio-economic transformation and development is not mutually exclusive to climate emergencies. The developments in the Sahel, and for those of you that know the Sahel very well, Niger, Mali, Mauritania, and the Sahara Desert Enclave. The Lake Chad Basin, the incessant droughts in Kenya, Ethiopia, and the natural disasters that recently occurred in Mozambique, South Africa, affecting Zambia and Malawi, the flood that occurred in Nigeria, Ghana, Sudan, to mention but a few, are evidence of the impact of climate change. Climate change has enormous implications on the sustainability and socio-economic development of Africa. The consequence of climate change have security and human well-being repercussions. We must therefore join forces to scale up advocacy on climate resilience and adherence to fundamental principles of sustainable development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to quote from Kwame Nkrumah again, and I quote, "I believe strongly and sincerely that with a deep-rooted wisdom and dignity, the innate respect for human lives, the intense humanity that is our heritage, the African race, united under one federal government, will emerge not as just another bloc to flaunt its wealth and strength, but as a great power whose greatness is indestructible because it is built not on fear, envy, and suspicion, nor won at the expense of others, but founded on hope, trust, friendship, and directed to the good of all mankind." End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, this quote is to reaffirm the integration process of the continent and to tell us as young people that our quality of life, our welfare, and our socio-economic prosperity as a continent is intrinsic, it's interconnected, and therefore what happens in Nigeria affects Ghana, affects Mali, affects South Africa, affects Ethiopia, and affects Rwanda. It is therefore important for us as young people to identify with the integration process and scale up the advocacy to ensure that our governments move in sync with all other states to ensure that we build a continent that is progressive, prosperous, and one that represents the interests and aspirations of its citizens. Let me conclude once again by congratulating each and every one of you seated in this room and for making time to be here. This is how we contribute in our bits and pieces to building the Africa we want. I thank you.
Build the youth. Destroy the youth. Thank you very much, our distinguished president, all the way from Ghana. While he was speaking, a very special and important personality walked in. With a standing ovation, I would like us to make welcome the mother of our president, Evangelist Katsi Yakilome Warihen. Please, let's give her a round of applause. A standing ovation, please. Our mama. Thank you very much, mommy. We are so happy to have you in our midst. Thank you very much. So we are moving straight to the final section. So we'll be welcoming all our leaders and guests to the red chamber here. So I would like to welcome Fatwa Undoye, the Secretary General Youth Advocate for Human Rights, all the way from Senegal to the red chamber here. Let's give her a round of applause. I would also like to welcome Esther Simon, the President, Pan-African Female Youth Leaders, all the way from Namibia, the Red Chamber here. We have the discussion session. We'd like to welcome the Vice Presidential Aspirant from ADC, Comrade Ahmed Buhari, the AU Youth Ambassador, the Red Chamber here. We'd also like to welcome the Speaker, Arewa Youth Assembly, Mohammed Dalami Salihu, to the Red Chamber here. We'd also like to welcome the Speaker of Odua Youth Parliament to the Red Chamber here. We'd also like to welcome the President, Association of Nigerian Female Students, Christiana. We'd also like to welcome the African Student Union Parliament Vice President, Paul Tenti, to the Red Chamber here. Yeah, we'd also like to welcome the Chairperson, African Women Conference, AWC, Blessing Gogo Ngbem. I would also like to welcome the President, African Youth from Ethiopia, Fal Gina Bonin. So please, if I mention your name, you can come and sit down here, please. I think we are set.
like to thank all of us for letting this program up to this point. And I'd like to invite the leaders that have interacted with Dr. Desmond to please come and take your seats in front. I'd like to invite Kelvin Oko and all of you to please come and take your seats in front. So at this point, I think every other part of the program will be done. We want to invite Dr. Desmond Oyakilome, who, of course, is a leading figure when it comes to youth development here in Nigeria and entire Africa. You may wish to put your hands together for him or be upstanding as he's been escorted to the stage by other youth leaders here in Nigeria. And of course, this is Dr. Desmond Oyakilome, who is the cynosure of attraction and of course the reason for our convergence today. We'd like esteemed Dr. Desmond to kindly take his seat as having welcomed him. So we are very grateful for having you, esteemed Dr. Desmond Oyakilome, and we are very grateful for you for putting this great event together that has brought youth leaders from across the continent of Africa for us to discuss. And of course, having arrived, we would like to still hand over to the anchor of the event to kindly continue the anchor as we continue with the remaining parts of the event. I understand that some of us have just stepped out to have our Muslim prayers. And of course, at the end of the day, we are going to have a full house and of course proceeding. I'm sure in the next couple of minutes, the remaining part of the event should be done. And of course, we would have the requisite refreshments before we begin to disperse accordingly. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your time and also for being here. Thank you very much. I'm grateful. You're welcome, Dr. Desmond Oyakilome. We're very grateful.
Build the youth, destroy the youth, and of the greatest youth, articulate youth. Are we tired? Turn to your neighbor and say, don't be tired. Thank you very much. So it's now time for the presidential address. So with a standing ovation, please, may I welcome Dr. Desmond Oyakilome for the presidential address. Please let's give him a round of applause.
Please, you may be seated. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you. I was watching earlier some of my colleagues who came here to speak on different subjects and introduce what is it that they do and their various organizations. And I want to say with all my heart, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I got to watch a little preview on a speech you made. I think it was yesterday. And some of the things that you said and shared, very inspiring. Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to, first of all, start by thanking God. Secondly, to thank my man of God and my father, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakilome. Please, you can clap for raising me and making me the person that I am today. And also the young people of Nigeria and Africa at large, and all the nations represented here today. I would like to say one thing here, which I was sharing to some of the leaders from Ethiopia before I came in. It's time to do business. Do you agree with me? It's time for the young people to do business with the rest of the world. We've had lots of discussions. We've had lots of events. We've had lots of programs. It's time for us to present the various things, innovations, and projects that we as Africans and young people are working on to the rest of the world. And I think part of what we are represented here to do is to establish that structure for this to happen. Made by Africa, bought by Africans, to improve our economy. Am I talking right? Oftentimes, we've learned to depend on the West. What destroys us is not even the foreign aid that we get from them. It's the foreign information. Foreign aid is good. I can share with you something very brief from the Bible. The only thing God tells us to guard diligently is not our pockets. Is not our bank accounts. He says to guard our what? Our hearts. Why? Information. So, we must circulate. And this is the first step. I just want to share with you the key steps that we're taking to ensuring the uniform and organized process to a transformed Africa. Do you agree with me that the youths need their own television network? Do you agree? We do. Because from the outside, that is where we get information on what is happening on the inside. There is nobody here who has not watched CNN. Am I right? Does everybody know CNN? Are they African? But how come we run with their narrative of Africa? You've been to so many countries in Africa. You've been to so many places in Africa, even particularly Nigeria. And you and I know that a lot of the places that they depict on their news looks nothing like a lot of what we have. And even if it does, it's selected. Because the news is brought to you with a narrative. Are you following me? We know Africa because we are Africans. We know the young people who are excelling in Africa. The first thing that we have decided to do is set up a 24-hour network to portray the excellence of our African youths. I think you should clap for that. what the youths are doing to shed light and to show light, to shine light on these various activities of the young people. Someone is going to come up in a bit to address these platforms that we have decided to create. The second is a youth bank. The second is a youth bank. I will tell you what we will do. My brother, you agree with me that 1 is a small amount, right? 1,000 is small, for example. But if 500,000 people give you 1,000 naira, it's no longer small. The power is not in the amount, it's in the number. And here in Africa, we have been blessed with numbers. Do you agree? All we have to do is network. I said to some of our brothers here today, and in subsequent meetings that we've had, I said no youth organization should go to any of these corporate bodies or government bodies to beg or solicit for funds again. Do not operate like a charity except you are a charity. We can very much do business. Are you following me? We can very much do business. There are things that we can do for the private sector. GTB, what is your target for the next 1 year? Frank PLC, what is your target for the next 1 year? We can get you and mobilize for you 50,000 customers across our networks. We can make it happen. Value for value. All we have to do is put together 2 networks and we get it done. And when we do that for you, this is our bill. No pleads, now bills. You only give from a point of strength to a structure that is weak. So now, it's no longer just a request. It's no longer just a plead. It's now a transaction. Everyone say transaction. And that's why we've come together. Because the government have done a lot. I'm not part of the young people who come to tear the government down. I mean, because anybody can talk when they've not been in that position. So, but then you have people who have the right intentions, and when they are talking, the most we can do is to give them an opportunity to prove what they have to say. But when such opportunities are given, and our trust is constantly betrayed, we have to create an alternative for the young people. And so now, value for value. Second point. There are things that we can do. We can sell our services as young people to organizations and get paid for it. You can't tell me, my brother, that if we put NANS together, African Youth Parliament together, and the likes that we have, that we cannot drive traffic to a corporate body or to a corporate brand. And numbers are money. All we have to do is say, give us a percentage from everyone that we give to you. I don't know if you understand. So if we bring 50,000 people to you, we would like 10% or 9% or 15% from that activity, from that traffic. And that comes to the organizations. This will help us pull weight away from the government. And instead of depending on them for money that we give to them, we would be the ones giving to the government. The youth organizations will be the ones giving to the government and not collecting from governments. That is part of our vision. How would the youth be respected when they have no say? How can they have a say when they are not ready to speak? And how can they be ready to speak when they don't know what to say? Let us do the needful. Heads of youth organizations, you have numbers. You are sitting on value. NANS has more than 40-something million people under their umbrella. Are you aware? Huh? And at the end of the day, an administration leaves and was not able to generate millions, even billions. We cannot continue to be blind to opportunities. Are you following? Why don't we create apps and centralize these apps to be used? Why don't we create our own financial system? Look at what is happening with crypto and forex today. It was a revolution, was it not? Everybody tilted towards that direction. But we were not able to do something central until now. This company came up with something, and that company came up with something, and this company comes up with something. The youths can come up with something that would be used centrally. And because we are organized, we can enforce the use. Are you following? That is what we are ready to do now. So thank you very much. I just wanted to give you an idea. The various youth organizations, funding for the various visions that you have, we plan to deal with such issues. Many of you have visions, and it's difficult to bring them to fruition. Why? No finances. But resources can be networked to you. Now, if you now have the resource and you are not doing the job, we now know where the problem is. On one end, we have people with huge resources, and nobody is doing work. And on another end, we have people who are ready to work, right? And no resources. So what do we do? Transfer. Is that right? And that's what we are going to do. Thank you very much.
If you were clapping for me, I would have understood. Please, a round of applause for Mr. President. A sounding round of applause for Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. President. With you, we now know there's a new challenge. We now know we must build our capacity and also increase our mindset towards a new dimension. I've learned today. Please, another round of applause for him. So now go straight into the inauguration of our union here by all the youth leaders you come forward for the inauguration. All the youth leaders from different organizations, please, you come forward. We'll be having. May I also invite Comrade Igwe Osisiogu to join me here. You stand here.
Sabi.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are about rounding up. Before the inauguration, may I also announce the presence of the Speaker, Odua Youth Parliament, Comrade Abdulmajid Oyeni, Are 1 of Odudua Youth Parliament. Welcome. And also his Deputy Speaker, you're welcome. So the final presentation before the inauguration from Aliu. Okay.
Zara.
Frame my mind, you shy up. 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 I get it there for America. She know they ever let me. Frame my mind, you shy up. Frame my mind,
Good afternoon. We are here to present a spoken word presentations together here with my colleague. My name is Alice Lama as well.
I'm Zara Ismail once again, and we're here to present a spoken word titled Africa, the Time is Now. Youths are the true barometers for economic, political, and social change. Therefore, take your pride of place. You are not leaders of tomorrow. You are leaders today. Start serving today.
John F. Kennedy said in 1960, a society whose young men and women are in constant state of slumber will never realize their potentials.
Africa is the only continent where her young men and women have no sense of their history, no sense of their present, and no sense of their future.
That is why we gathered here today under the auspices of United Africa Youth Nations to remind ourselves that we can never change Africa through social media. No, we cannot. We cannot change Africa on Facebook or Instagram. No, we cannot. We must come to the arena of action, suffer sweat, and plant a tree in the knowledge that we will never enjoy her shade. Because history has demonstrated that those who plant a tree never enjoy her shade. You can only plant a tree. Another generation will water the tree. Another generation will prune the tree. And another generation will enjoy her shade.
Oh, you do not know that Africa can only grow on the shoulder of her young people. I am saying this to demonstrate to you that throughout history, young Africans have always made their contribution.
If you look at the history of any African country, if it is in South Africa, you will recognize young men and women who are in their 20s. How old was Walter Sisulu when he joined the struggle? How old was Albert Luthuli when he joined the struggle? How old was Robert Mangalisa Sabuki? How old was Oliver Tambo? How old was Steve Bantus Biko?
In South Africa, when they were fighting against the apartheid regime, in 1960 at the Shapley Massacre, in 1969 at the Shapley Massacre, and in 1976 at the Soweto Massacre, it was young men and women who consciously rose and said that we must change our country, and apartheid died.
And it was not only in South Africa. If you go to Namibia, how old was Sam Nujoma? How old was Herman Adimbo Toyibo when SWAPO was fighting against the apartheid regime?
If you move upstairs to Angola, how old was Agostina Neto? How old was Jonas Malhili Savimbi? How old was Holding Roberto when they were rising against the government in Antonia Di Spinola?
And it was not only in Angola. If you go down there to Mozambique, how old was Eduardo Mulena? How old was Samora Moses Marshall? And one can go on and on to Inyerere, to Banda, to Lumumba, to Amadou Ahijo, to Dr. Inamdi Azikiwe, to Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, to the Sardona of Sokoto, to Sadauda Kairaba Jawara, to Leopold Sedar Senghor, to Ahmad bin Billah. And you will recognize that these were young men and women who are conscious that their countries could only grow by the sweat of our young people. Ladies and gentlemen, we must not keep quiet. We must continue to raise our voices talking not with the arrogance that will inflame the African politicians' anger, but with the firmness and the clarity that will yield and open their eyes in the fullness of direction. I think that is our patriotic duty. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we are also welcoming the Are, one of Odua Youth Parliament, for his 2-minute speech. Thank you.
AJ boys and they like to throw away.
Build the youth, destroy the youth, of the greatest Nigerian youth, of the greatest Cuba. Actually, my name is Are Abdulmajid Oladimeji. I'm the Speaker of Odua Youth Parliament, Botoman Diaspora. Toko. You uncle? So permit me to just say a few words about my dialect. Please, I'm a traditional person, which I have to observe the traditional who I am. Please, just for a minute. Mo kí ẹ̀yin ọmọ káàárọ̀ oòjíire ní gbogbo àgbáyé. Orúkọ tèmi ni Ọ̀gbẹ́ni Abdulmajid Oladimeji tí mo jẹ́ ààrẹ ọ̀dọ́ fún ààrẹ ọ̀dọ́ ní ìpínlẹ̀ káàárọ̀ oòjíire. Actually, let me just digress what I just say in my dialect. I say I openly observe the son of the soil. I saw Yoruba in the country, Botoman Diaspora. I see observe the traditional. Actually, on behalf of His Royal Majesty, in person of Oni of Ife and all the Royal Highness in Southwest, openly observe. Actually, I want to say a brief about Odua Youth Parliament. Also, my stand to advise the youth in Africa. We must believe in the unity of Africa, and actually we must work together to achieve our goals. It's time for us to stand on our feet to address issues that affect the constituency of the youth in Africa. And also, I want to call my colleagues in Nigeria, permit me to digress on why I'm calling the youth of Nigeria. We're about to do our 2023 election. By February, we will announce the next president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. The power is in our hand. Let's sit down and discuss and check all the potential manifesto. Who has the interest of the youth at heart? Who can change the economic status of this country? And also, Nigeria has gone far beyond what we are doing today. The economic of the country cannot be talked about. Issue of education sector in the country. A lot of things that we need to sit down and discuss that affect our major constituency. And also, I want to charge the youth of Africa that we believe in unity. We can achieve a lot. Thank you very much. I submit for now.
Consequence.
I went there with my best friend Kule. Ghetto girls then they like Takasufi. So many pretty girls they inside my mule. I just the one that say which can party, everything yakba, everything there. Push it, I get many girls where then they come from away. AJ boys then they like to throw away. Mama see go babe.